The courtroom sat in suffocating silence. A breathless pause stretched to its breaking point. Then came the sound, sharp, unforgiving. The judge's gavel slammed down. The verdict echoed like thunder. Guilty. A gasp cut through the still air. Cameras flashed, reporters jolted forward, and somewhere in the back row, Anna's mother collapsed in disbelief. Anna stared straight ahead, motionless, her 27-year-old frame rigid under the fluorescent buzz of courtroom lights. Her eyes didn't blink. Her mouth didn't move. Only a single tear betrayed her. The man in the defendant's chair? He just nodded, once like he'd known this was coming all along. The prosecutor smirked slightly. The defense attorney looked down. Outside, protesters chanted. Inside, truth had just been sentenced. This wasn't just a verdict. It was a collapse. A gavel strike that shook not just one woman's life, but ignited a firestorm that would rage far beyond these walls. Anna didn't move. She couldn't. The courtroom emptied around her like a draining pool, but she remained seated, hands in her lap, breathing shallow and silent. Her ears rang with phantom echoes, cheers from outside, sobs nearby, the click of heels disappearing down marble steps. A single sheet of paper lay crumpled beneath her chair, the motion her lawyer never submitted. She stared at it, unmoving. Her world had narrowed into a tunnel of disbelief. The judge had stood and left. The jury had gone. The defendant was being led away in cuffs. But Anna, she stayed. How? She whispered, voice barely audible. The janitor hesitated at the doorway but said nothing. Because what do you say to someone who's just seen justice die? In that moment, Anna wasn't a daughter. She wasn't a witness. She was a wound, open, unseen, and bleeding truth. In the judge's chambers, the door clicked shut behind the prosecutor and the detective. They didn't speak for a moment. Then, a folder slid across the polished mahogany table. It's done, the prosecutor said flatly. The detective nodded, rubbing his temple. She's gonna talk, he muttered. The prosecutor leaned in. Then make sure she doesn't. Their eyes locked. No conscience. No hesitation. This wasn't justice, it was damage control. The judge, standing at the back, sipped quietly from a glass, watching them both. He said nothing, but his silence said everything. Outside that room, Anna believed in the system. Inside it, the system had already decided her truth was too dangerous. A deal had been made long before the trial began. And justice? That was never the end game. Survival was. The hallway outside the courtroom was cold, stone floors, echoing footsteps. Anna walked slowly, her heels clicking with uncertain rhythm. Every step pulled her back to the night it all began. Sirens screaming, her father's body on the ground, blood pooling under streetlight flicker. She'd screamed, clutched his shirt, felt the warmth draining. He didn't deserve that, she whispered. Not then. Not now. She touched the necklace she wore, his old badge. A tremble passed through her fingers. This wasn't just about a courtroom anymore. This was war. They'd taken her father. And now, they'd buried the truth too. Anna's eyes hardened. The tears stopped. Rage began to bloom. Outside, the media swarmed like vultures. Lights. Nix. Shouting. Anna, do you think justice was served? Is the system broken? She stepped into the blinding chaos, face unreadable. A dozen microphones closed in. She took one breath. Just one. The system didn't fail, she said, voice steady. It did exactly what it was built to do. Silence. Reporters froze. The moment crystallized, then shattered into rapid questions. She walked through them. Didn't look back. Somewhere inside her, the real trial had just begun. 6 months earlier, the world was simpler. Anna sat on her father's porch, both of them wrapped in flannel and quiet laughter. Her father, Detective Joseph Alvarez, had always made the world feel safe. One day, he said, sipping coffee, you'll see why I stayed in this city. You don't abandon what you're meant to protect. Anna smiled. You mean me? He laughed, deep and warm. You and the truth. That morning, the sun rose soft behind the rusted rooftops. The air smelled like early spring and burnt toast. It would be the last peaceful morning they'd share. Before the shooting. Before the trial. Before the world took sides. In that quiet exchange, Anna believed something unshakable. The system her father defended was worth fighting for. She didn't know then, it would soon become the very thing that tried to destroy her. Anna remembered the last time she saw her father alive. It wasn't dramatic. No foreboding music, no warning signs. Just routine. He put on his badge, kissed her forehead, said, "I'll be home late, kiddo." She said, "Be safe." It was that simple. But hours later, she got the call. Officer down. She'd sprinted to the scene, flashing lights, shouting, tape everywhere. He was already gone. They said it was a gang hit. Random. Wrong place, wrong time. But that didn't sit right. Her father never left things to chance. He was always 3 steps ahead. She'd seen the case file. It was thin. Too thin. No surveillance, no reliable witnesses, no suspects brought in. Just a closed casket and a closed case. Anna never believed the official story. Not then. Not now. At his funeral, the badge on her necklace was still warm from his chest. Anna didn't cry, not in front of them. She sat in the front pew, jaw clenched, hands folded tight in her lap. But the mayor spoke. The chief made promises. Cameras snapped. But Anna only heard silence. The silence between facts. The silence that screamed something was wrong. Afterward they tried to steer her, said it was best to grieve and move on. But she couldn't. Because a truth buried beneath ceremony still suffocates. Anna replayed every call, every text from her father that week. He'd been tense. Said he was onto something big. Said if anything happens, look inside, not outside. She kept that line buried until now. But it was growing louder. Anna spent the next few months digging. What she found wasn't a smoking gun. It was smoke everywhere. Reports went missing. Statements contradicted each other. 2 officers involved in the investigation were suddenly reassigned. Her father's partner avoided her calls. She started asking questions. Quietly at first. Then loudly. And the louder she got, the more things disappeared. One night, she found a flash drive in her mailbox. No note. Just a time-stamped folder titled J.A. Inside, bodycam footage, radio logs, and a memo marked internal. Her father had compiled it. Someone didn't want her to see it. But it was too late. She copied everything. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. Even if it kills you. The footage was short, grainy, but damning. It showed a meeting, late at night behind the precinct. Her father confronting someone. Voices muffled, but clear enough. You're covering for them. Then, a gunshot. Then, static. The file cut there. Anna sat frozen, pulse racing. She replayed it again. And again. The man in the shadows wasn't a stranger. It was a senior officer. One who testified in court. One who smiled when the gavel fell. That night, Anna made her choice. She would not grieve in silence. She would fight. For her father. For the truth. Even if the system tried to silence her too. Especially then. Because silence, she'd learned, was the loudest form of betrayal. Anna sat across from her father's former partner, Detective Ray Mendez, in a quiet diner on the city's south end. The walls were yellowed with age, and the smell of old coffee filled the air. "You shouldn't be digging," Ray muttered, eyes darting to the window. "They're watching." Anna leaned forward. "Who's they, Ray? You were his partner, help me understand." Ray hesitated, fingers tapping the chipped mug. "He found something. Something internal. Thought it led to command. I told him to drop it. He didn't." His voice cracked. And now he's gone. I'm next if I talk. Anna's voice hardened. Then let's both go down swinging. The waitress refilled their coffee without a word. Ray slipped her a napkin under the table, folded tight. Start here, he whispered. But don't trust anyone wearing a badge. Not anymore. Anna tucked the note into her coat. The room felt colder now. Anna followed the lead. It brought her to a locked archive in the lower levels of the municipal building. The place smelled of dust and secrets. Using a copied access badge from Ray, she slipped inside. The lights flickered as rows of file cabinets loomed like tombstones. She found the drawer. Case file 1114. Her father's handwriting. Inside were memos, transfer orders, altered timelines. But one name kept appearing: Chief Harold Lasky. He had signed off on every missing piece of evidence. Anna's fingers trembled. She photographed everything. Then she heard footsteps. Fast. Taut. Heavy. She slammed the drawer shut and ducked into the shadows. A flashlight beam swept the room. A security guard passed, then paused. Silence. Then movement. She held her breath until he left. This wasn't a paper trail. It was a live wire. Anna needed eyes on the inside. She turned to Marcus, an IT tech at Precinct HQ, and an old college friend. Nervous but loyal, Marcus agreed to help. I can access internal comms, but it'll flag me, he warned. They'll know someone's looking. Anna placed her hand over his. Then be careful, and fast. They worked in his apartment, screens glowing in the dark. Lines of code scrolled like rain. He cracked into deleted communications. Audio logs. Tampered timestamps. Conversation surfaced. Make it look clean. Make Alvarez disappear. Anna's stomach turned. The voice belonged to Chief Lasky. Marcus turned to her, pale. You're not paranoid. You're hunted. Anna nodded. Then I hunt back. She copied the files. The first domino had just fallen. They had the truth, but the system was already moving to crush it. That night, Anna's apartment was broken into. No burglary. Nothing stolen. Just the message. Her files gone, her laptop fried, drawers pulled open and left half shut. She stepped in, heart pounding. The silence screamed. Her kitchen light flickered. Her wall mirror was shattered. On her bed, a single page had been left. Her father's old memo, now burnt around the edges. Stop digging, scrawled in red ink. Her breath shook, but she didn't cry. Instead, she grabbed her phone and took a picture of the page. You came into my home, she whispered. Now I'm coming into yours. She stepped over broken glass and opened her closet, pulling out an old box. Inside, her father's case notes, a backup drive, and the only thing he ever told her to hide. It wasn't just personal anymore. It was war. At 3:17 a.m., Anna stood across the street from police headquarters. The building glowed sterile white against the night sky. Inside, they were already scrubbing. Already deleting. She clutched her father's old case binder to her chest. Her breath steamed in the cold air. Behind her the city slept. But she couldn't. Not anymore. She knew what they'd done. And she had evidence. Not enough to win, but enough to burn. Her phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. One word, go. Anna crossed the street slowly, each step louder than the last. Her eyes locked on the precinct doors. She wasn't scared. She was done running. If the system wanted a war, it had just declared it on the wrong woman. Anna waited in a dim corner of an underground parking garage, her father's binder clutched tightly under her coat. Ray had agreed to meet. He was late. The air was heavy with diesel and nerves. Finally, headlights cut through the shadows. Ray stepped out, but he wasn't alone. Chief Lasky stood beside him. Anna froze. What is this? She asked. Ray looked away. I tried to warn you. Lasky stepped forward, calm as a sermon. You're playing with fire, Ms. Alvarez. That file should have been buried with your father. Anna didn't move. Then you'll have to bury me too. Lasky smiled. That can be arranged. Ray tossed a keycard onto the ground between them. What's that? Anna asked. Proof, Ray muttered. Or a death sentence. Then he got back in the car and left. Lasky stared at her one last time before walking into the dark. Anna was alone again, but now she had something they feared. Back at Marcus' apartment, Anna slid the keycard through a secure terminal he had improvised from salvage tech. A loading bar blinked. Then one folder opened, Black Echo. Inside were surveillance logs, audio transcripts, internal memos, evidence that an elite task force had been used to suppress whistleblowers. Her father had traced funds and names. He'd almost blown it open. One file made her hands tremble, a transcript between Lasky and the district judge. Ensure the case is assigned to Vickers. He'll bury it. Anna gasped. That was her judge. The whole trial had been poisoned before it began. Marcus whispered, We have them. Anna shook her head. No, we don't, not yet, but we will. And just like that, her grief turned into fury. Now she wasn't just a witness. She was a weapon. Anna confronted Judge Vickers in the hallway outside chambers. No cameras. No crowd. Just truth and terror. You sentenced the case before it started, she said. Vickers froze. You have no proof. Anna leaned in. I have enough to make you sweat. His eyes twitched. You think anyone will believe you over me, he whispered. I wear the robe. She smiled bitterly. And my father wore the badge. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Vickers said something that chilled her blood. Your father didn't die for the truth. He died for interfering with power. Anna stared at him, the realization cutting deep. This wasn't just corruption. It was a machine built to destroy resistance. She stepped back and said, Then I'll burn the machine down. He didn't follow her. He just adjusted his cuffs. Later that night, Marcus's apartment exploded. Anna saw it from the rooftop 2 blocks away, flames roaring into the sky, sirens screaming in seconds. She dropped to her knees. He was gone. Everything was gone. Her backup drive? Destroyed. Her only ally? Silenced. The fire was no accident. It was a message. Her phone buzzed. A blocked number. She answered. A mechanical voice said, Next time, it's you. Then silence. Anna didn't scream. She didn't cry. She stood, ash settling around her like snow. They thought fear would break her. But they misunderstood. Anna had nothing left to lose. And that made her unstoppable. Her father's words echoed inside her. If anything happens, look inside, not outside. She wiped her eyes, turned from the blaze and whispered, Let's finish this. Anna returned to the courthouse, not to plead, but to provoke. She slipped into the judge's chamber unannounced, a flash drive in hand, a recorder running in her coat. You're going to help me, she said, placing the drive on his desk. Vickers scoffed. This isn't a movie, Ms. Alvarez. She leaned closer. No, it's a reckoning. She pressed play on the recorder. His voice, the confession from the hallway, filled the room. His face drained. You want immunity? He asked. I want names, she replied. And a courtroom that doesn't kill truth. He hesitated. Then for the first time he looked afraid. Anna stepped back. If I go down, I take you all with me. She walked out. For the first time the system had blinked. The war wasn't won, but the tide had turned. The courtroom was full again, but not with believers. Reporters lined the benches, their pens sharp, their questions sharper. Cameras blinked like warning lights. Anna walked in, no lawyer at her side, only fire in her eyes. She wasn't the one on trial, but today, she was the one who brought the evidence. The motion she submitted was explosive. Audio, transcripts, sealed memos. all pointing to a conspiracy inside the department and judiciary. The judge reviewing it wasn't Vickers. This one looked her in the eye and said, "Means? Alvarez, you understand the risk of perjury?" She replied, "I understand the risk of silence." Gasps echoed. Outside, protesters roared her name. The city was no longer watching. It was demanding answers. And Anna had become their voice. Prosecution tried to discredit her. "She's emotional. She's unstable. She lost her father," they said. Anna sat silent, hands folded, jaw set. Then it was her turn. She stood and spoke, not from paper, but from pain. "You called my father a casualty, but he was a warning. He died chasing the truth, and I'm not done running with it." She played the recording of Lasky's conversation. The courtroom fell silent. The defense attorney's face paled. A juror whispered, "Oh my God." The judge banged his gavel. "Order!" But the truth had already taken hold. This wasn't just about one case. It was about all the cases buried in silence. About every whistle that died in the dark. The trial had become a spark. On the second day of hearings, the courtroom exploded, figuratively. A surprise witness was called, Detective Ray Mendez. He walked in like a ghost, shoulders slouched, eyes downcast. Anna met his gaze. He nodded once. On the stand, his voice cracked, but his words were clear. The task force was real. It operated off books. Alvarez found out. They made him disappear. Gasps, deadall. Scribbles. Ray continued, "I was part of it, until I couldn't be." Tears welled in his eyes. "I should have stopped it sooner." The judge leaned back, shaken. The prosecution didn't object. They knew. The court wasn't just listening, they were awakening. Ray stepped down, defeated, but finally free. Anna placed her hand on his shoulder. Not in forgiveness, in solidarity. The city outside wasn't quiet anymore. Crowds surrounded the courthouse day and night. People held signs with her father's name. Chants rang through steel and glass. Inside, officials began to fold. Lasky resigned. The DA issued a public statement. "We acknowledge procedural failures." But Anna didn't want acknowledgments. She wanted justice, clear, permanent, public. When she stepped outside that afternoon, a child held a sign, "My dad's a cop, tell the truth." Anna knelt, met the child's eyes and said, "We're trying." Around her, news anchors shouted for interviews. But she wasn't there to be a symbol. She was there to end the silence, even if her voice shook. Truth had gone public, and it was louder than ever before. Back inside, the final motion was read into record. The judge declared an independent inquiry into corruption within the department and judiciary. Applause broke out, quickly silenced by a gavel. But the crack in the system had become a fracture. Anna sat alone as the court recessed, exhaustion lining her face. Justice wasn't a moment, it was a process. And that process had begun. She looked at her father's badge in her hand. No gleam. Just worn metal and memory. Marcus. Ray. Dite. Her father. Everyone who paid. The cost had been high. But now, it meant something. As she rose to leave, someone whispered, "Thank you." She didn't know who. Maybe the system wasn't dead. Maybe it was just finally waking up. The courtroom was packed again, but now the tension was different. It wasn't dread. It was hope cloaked in suspense. Everyone waited. As the jury filed in. 12 faces, pale with pressure. Anna sat perfectly still, her father's badge in one hand, the motion documents in the other. The judge asked, "Has the jury reached a verdict on the motion to unseal the investigation into Chief Harold Lasky and Associates?" The foreperson stood. "Wow. We have, Your Honor." The world froze. "We find grounds to proceed with criminal charges based on submitted evidence." Gasps, Dotty. Anna didn't move. Her breath caught in her throat. The gavel struck. So ordered. The courtroom erupted. The wall had cracked. The door was open. The system hadn't admitted guilt, but it had opened itself to examination. That was more than anyone expected. But for Anna, it wasn't enough. After court, Anna didn't speak to the cameras. She walked straight through the crowd, flanked by silence. Inside her, a storm brewed. The charges were just the beginning. Lasky hadn't been convicted. Ray was still missing. Marcus was gone. And her father, his justice was still a question mark. The truth had been forced into the open, but accountability was still hiding. She reached the edge of the courthouse plaza, where a wall of flowers, photos, and candles had grown around her father's memorial. Someone had placed a note. "Your fight lit ours." Anna knelt, placed the badge on the stone, and whispered, "It's not over." Then she stood, wiped her hands on her jeans, and turned toward the station. They'd open the courtroom. Now she'd break the rest of the system. Lasky was arrested at dawn. No press. No statement. Just cold metal and handcuffs in a parking lot outside his country club. Anna watched from a distance. He didn't resist, just stared at the ground. His empire, untouchable for decades, cracked in seconds. As he was loaded into the back of the cruiser, he looked up and locked eyes with her across the street. No hate, no regret, just emptiness. It was over for him. But for Anna, it was just another name off the list. She turned away before the doors closed. Justice wasn't theatrical. It wasn't satisfying. It was heavy, quiet, sometimes ugly, but necessary. And this time, it had begun. She walked away without a word. Because the work wasn't over. Not even close. Later that week, Anna sat before a federal inquiry panel. A long mahogany table. 3 judges. Microphones. Cameras hidden behind a glass. Ms. Alvarez, the lead investigator, asked, "Why did you pursue this without counsel or legal protection?" Anna looked up. "Because no one protected my father. I wasn't asking anymore." One judge leaned forward. "You understand you may be targeted again." She nodded. "They already tried, and they failed." Her voice didn't rise, but it didn't need to. Her words struck like stone. The courtroom wasn't her battlefield anymore. This was bigger. This was systemic rot on display. As the panel reviewed the files, Anna sat alone, calm, resolute. What had started as grief had become testimony. Her scars were now evidence. Her silence was over, and the country was finally listening. Anna walked home that evening in the rain. No cameras. No protests. Just footsteps echoing on slick pavement. Her clothes were damp, her shoulders heavy, but her stride was steady. She passed storefronts, street musicians, children laughing beneath umbrellas. The world hadn't changed overnight. The city still breathed its old rhythm. But something had shifted. She passed a mural, unfinished, of her father. Below it, someone had written, "Truth lives here." She stopped and stared. A tear slipped down her cheek, indistinguishable from the rain. Then she smiled, small, almost imperceptible. For the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe. The war wasn't over. But she'd won a battle. She whispered, "We're not done." Then she kept walking. 2 months later, the headlines had changed. Investigations launched. Resignations filed. Internal affairs gutted and rebuilt. But the world didn't stop turning. Anna sat at a cafe near the courthouse, sipping coffee she barely tasted. Across the street, new recruits walked into the academy. Fresh uniforms, naive eyes. She watched them, wondering if any of them knew the truth behind those marble steps. A reporter approached her table. "Off the record," she said, voice gentle, "do you regret it?" Anna looked up, tired but certain. "No, I regret waiting so long." The reporter nodded, stepped away. The city wasn't healed. But it was open now, like a wound finally exposed to air. And wounds, painful as they are where healing begins. Anna folded her coat over the seat, finished her coffee, and stood. Her work wasn't done, but it had begun to matter. Anna visited her father's grave for the first time since the inquiry began. It was quiet, no crowds, no speeches. Just her and the wind. She crouched beside the stone, ran her fingers across the carved name. "You were right," she said. "The system's not broken. It's working exactly how they built it. But we're going to change that." She pulled a folded photo from her coat, one of them, smiling, porch light in the background, and placed it under the edge of the headstone. "I'm not finished," she whispered. "And I'm not alone anymore." As she stood, she heard footsteps behind her. Dozens of them. She turned. People were approaching. Some in uniforms, some in protest shirts, some holding candles. They didn't speak. They stood beside her. Silent. United. Light had become a movement. Inside a dimly lit auditorium, Anna took the stage. A public panel on justice reform, filled to capacity. Cameras broadcast live. She didn't have a script, only her story. "I never wanted to be here," she began. "I never wanted to become a case or a name you Google. I just wanted answers." Her voice was calm, stripped bare of performance. But when the people in power give you silence, your voice becomes a weapon. Applause rose. She continued, eyes locked on the audience. "Justice isn't a verdict, it's a habit. A hard one. And if we don't build better systems, we'll bury more fathers, more truth." A silence followed, not of doubt, but of awe. She stepped off the stage, not as a victim, not even as a hero, but as something harder to erase, a witness who refused to forget. In a small office above a bookstore, Anna reviewed a draft. The Alvarez files, how a badge became a bombshell. It wasn't for profit. It was for record. Every redacted memo, every altered timestamp, every voice silenced along the way, it would all live here. A librarian friend offered her the space. "History's memory is short," he told her. "Unless someone writes it down." She smiled. "Then let's make it loud." Outside the window, rain pattered softly, but inside Anna typed with steady fingers. The world had moved on, but she wouldn't. The ink she used was for everyone who never got to testify. The people who only lived on in margins and footnotes. In her hands, the file was no longer evidence. It was legacy. A year had passed. The city changed. Faces in leadership were new. Murals stood where silence once lived. But Anna never returned to the courtroom. She passed it one morning on her way to teach a class on civic ethics. She paused on the steps. A student beside her asked, "Was this where it started?" Anna nodded. "And where it cracked?" The student asked, "Did you win?" Anna thought about that. The verdicts. The losses. The lives ruined and revealed. Then she answered, "We didn't win. We made them afraid of silence." She looked at the building one last time. That's a start. As she turned away, the bells rang noon. The city buzzed behind her. Ahead was something new. A different battle. But this time she wouldn't be alone. The final step echoed like a heartbeat. Soft, but permanent.